opportunities comes with it. So the idea behind community broadcasting is that it is broadcasting by the community for the community, and it's pegged within some very five key pillars, which is community ownership, community participation, non-profit model, and I think that is where there is a point of departure from the mainstream media, who are doing like an enterprise, a business where they are looking for returns, and like Waruru alluded to, now when those returns are not coming as expected, then there is an expected, there is a need to probably lay off some people or to cut off on some spendings and all that. And the other key component of this is, which has been really affected, is on the community participation, because community needs to participate in the content generation and all that. And given the spaces that the community media or community radio stations work in, their small spaces, and therefore, given the guidelines
Tom, you're losing you.
of health, it is difficult or rather impossible for
Tom, we lost you. Maybe use audio alone. So as we wait to reconnect to Tom.
Hello?
Hi, Tom, proceed.
You can hear me now?
Yeah. Maybe you could try use audio alone.
That is what I've done now. Now, I've had good proposal coming from the speakers, Masli Nyambala, also Janak, and even Joel, on the question of merging and all that. But again, I think we need to think through this, because we are looking at community radio stations as outfits that are for a particular community of interest. And this community of interest could be on issue-based or geographic. And when I talk of issue-based, I mean probably they'll be discussing or focusing on a particular subject of interest to the community. And therefore, probably merging them might be a challenge. And even in terms of the geographic, for instance, Wajir Community Radio Station, for instance, and Baliti stations, for instance, there is I don't think there is that possibility of them merging. But I agree that we may want to work on the question of how do we collectively market these stations. And believe you me, like I told you earlier, is that they are formed on not not-for-profit models. So the marketing here for the community radio stations and which kind of community media network have started to do a joint marketing of these is because of the question of numbers. But even if we talk of numbers, there is also a point which has been raised by Joel, which I think is key in terms of the niche audience. Because if we talk of numbers, probably the audience in Korogosho, we might not think of, like, for instance, a million reach in Korogosho alone for Coach FM, but that particular audience that is there, there is some interest that areas of their interest that we need to focus on. So I think marketing these community media outlets collectively is a plus, and we've learned that it is now working, and this is working with more so the development partners who are NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and even the government. Uh, and we've also learned that there is also a need to have some sort of support in terms of financial support. And I agree and really support the idea of us pushing for creation of the fund, sustainability fund, for these media outlets, because they play a very critical role in terms of educating the communities. And even going forward, there will be need. COVID has taught us that there is need to have some behavior change communication models that are championed by these community media outlets. And without those funds, then it might be difficult. But we are also looking at a model whereby we can have people within these communities volunteering themselves. I know Mercy talked of community journalists or community media practitioners being volunteers, but we are looking for a model whereby we can have experts, for instance, working with the county government to have people who are expert, let's say, like, for instance, in the areas that the radio stations are addressing matters of the pastoralist. So we have, for instance, people from the Ministry of Agriculture volunteering their time, maybe 1 hour or so a week, to come there to speak about matters of livestock within these radio stations, education experts, so that these are people within these communities who are volunteering themselves, but yes, they are working somewhere else, so that the burden of probably sustaining them in terms of salaries is taken away from, it's not on the stations. So these models have worked in some areas. I know we shared with some people in India, and they said that is a good model that is working for them. They're having people coming in turns, volunteering hours, and then leaving, not necessarily stations in the stations permanently, as they are there all the time. And that is an area that we need also to explore here in Kenya. But again, coming in terms of the question of independence as of the media has been alluded to by Janak. This fund, there is a need also to have people from the sector, that is media, within the management of this fund. Otherwise, then it might be used as what Guy is doing now, where they can say, no, we are not giving this money to so and so because of this and this. And therefore, the other aspect, which I think is key here in terms of moving forward and in terms of how we can be able to fund the community radio stations, I think there is a need for us also to push for. I know there is the media policy that is being worked on by the Media Council, and I think there is a need for us to have some provision that will mandate the CA to set aside some funds to support these community radio stations. And I'm saying the CA because it's the CA who will, upon having a clear definition of what a community radio station would be, and even going through the validation or registration process, they're the one who will have a record of who or where is the community radio station, or who is a community radio station, or and then they'll be able to know who to fund and what time, and probably then this money, you can say this is the much that they can be given within a year, like it is happening in the UK, where community radios are being funded by the government within UK. So if that happens here, then the question of uh, these community radio stations trying to struggle with the mainstream radio stations, which are indeed in business of making money, then I think that will ease that burden of them struggling, because when they go to the those who are the media buying agency, the first question they are being asked, what is your reach? Where do you cover? Who do you reach? And therefore, that is why this money ends up in the mainstream media only. So going forward, I think uh, uh, I'm looking forward to continue engaging with with the colleagues on this, and so that we could find a way that will be of help to the media community sector in Kenya. And I really appreciate being in this conference. Thank you, Rosalia.